Something people often confuse is the difference between the words manga and anime. And I don't blame you if you do, because in Japan, manga can refer to both animation and comics. However, outside of Japan, manga strictly means Japanese comics. Anime, on the other hand, is simply the Japanese word for animation. And before the word anime came about around the 1980s, people used the word Japanimation to specifically describe Japanese animation. But to make it simple, anime means animation and manga means comics. One thing that makes manga and anime so iconic and recognizable is often the large and exaggerated eyes. You thought I would say boobs, didn't you? Well, we get to that in a moment. But the large eyes on many manga and anime characters can actually be credited to one man. His name is Osamu Tezuka and is often considered the godfather of anime, as he was basically the Japanese version of Walt Disney. And that is actually what inspired Tezuka. He was inspired by Disney cartoons where many of the characters such as Mickey Mouse and Bambi featured large eyes. Another iconic design for manga and anime characters is the hair and usually extreme hair colors. However, the colors aren't just selected randomly. In many cases they express significant elements of that character's personality. This is based on the color symbolism in Japan. For example, black can mean mystery or evil, red means joy, love or aggression, gray can mean intelligence or boredom. Every color has its own set of meanings, however, not every anime and manga use it. In Japan, around 200 new anime appears on television every year, and more paper is used for printing manga than for making toilet paper. Anime is such a huge phenomenon in Japan that Japanese animation accounts for over 60% of the whole world's animation-based entertainment. The highest grossing anime film of all time is Spirited Away by Studio Ghibli, which has grossed over $270 million. At second place comes another Studio Ghibli film, Howl's Moving Castle, at over $230 million. The longest running anime series as well as the longest running animated series worldwide is a show called Sasei-san. It began airing in Japan in 1969 and currently has over 2,255 individual episodes. It could also be said to have over 6,000 episodes depending on what counting system you use. The most amazing thing about this series though is that it's still in production after all these years. Compared to the Western world, where animation and comics are mostly seen as something only enjoyed by and targeted towards children, anime is quite the opposite. Even though there are a lot of stuff targeted just for children, there's just as much anime and manga targeted towards teens and adults, which is not afraid of showing death, gore, sex and other controversial themes that's usually otherwise only seen in live action movies and series. Anime and manga even have specific categories to specify who the target audience is. Anime is a Japanese word, and since they don't use plurals in Japan, the plural of anime is anime and not animes. Because anime and manga originates from Japan, it has a lot of genres, definitions and words not often used elsewhere. Here are some examples. Moe. While it does not have a concrete definition, generally it's used to describe that a female character or even a whole show or comic is striving to be very cute to invoke a feeling of sympathy and endearment within the viewer. Fan service. Sexual elements specifically included to please the audience that are usually unnecessary to plot development. ONA. Anime intended to be distributed via the internet through streaming or download. OVA. Anime intended to be distributed on VHS tapes or DVDs and not to be shown in cinema or on TV. Mecha. Giant fucking robots. It can be very hard to describe what an anime is, because technically anime is just a simple abbreviation of the word animation. There are no predefined rules of what an anime should or should not include, yet most of us would identify this as an anime while this would be a cartoon. However, the latter is the oldest preserved anime in existence, created around 1907 by an unknown animator. But even though the word anime quite literally covers all of animation, the modern usage of the word usually describes one of two things. The first is that anime is defined by the character's unique features such as the pointy chin, large eyes, spiky hair, elongated thin bodies and limbs, and of course the obligatory huge breast syndrome. The second popular definition is that anime is only animation created by Japanese and/or was created in Japan.
It's okay.
Yes, I'm totally Japanese, as you can hear from my flawless pronunciations, much like my English Danish pronunciations. Yeah. Attack on Titan was created by Hajime Isayama and was first published in 2009. The manga has since grown into 14 volumes, with 2 spin-off light novels and 3 spin-off manga series as well. But of course, the reason most of you even know about it is because of the extremely successful and popular anime by the same name. Hajime Isayama said in an interview that he had previously planned to end the series in a very dramatic way by supposedly killing off all or most of the main characters. He compared it to the very extreme ending of the movie The Mist. But after the release of the anime and the series' subsequent boost in popularity, he didn't want to slam the fans with such a traumatic conclusion. I'm sure George will follow the same path, right? Right? It's also been said that the manga will end within 3 to 4 years. The enormous walls that surrounds and protects humanity was in the beginning supposed to be some kind of forest or a tree line, but the idea was abandoned later on because the solid walls seemed much more realistic and capable of stopping the Titans. Isayama has also mentioned that the idea for the walls in the first place was because he grew up in a rural Japanese town surrounded by huge mountains. The idea for the Titans themselves came to Isayama when he encountered a drunk customer while working at an internet cafe. He was inspired by the inability to communicate with him even though the person was of the same species. At that moment he realized that the scariest and most familiar animal in the world is actually humans. He also realized that if you make them 25 stories tall and make them dance like Muppets on acid, all the while having a completely ridiculous facial expression, you will have nightmares for eternity. So yeah, I think he did well on that part. Oh, and they also lack balls.
God, don't make it gay, Armin!
2 of the main characters in the series were actually based on characters from the movie Watchmen. Levi was based on Rorschach and Irvin was based on Ozymandias. Pixis was modeled after a general in the Imperial Japanese Army. There's also an interesting thing about the character Hanji Sui, because no one really knows what gender she or he is. In the anime, she's voiced by a female, and as such most would agree that she is indeed a female. But in the manga, which is after all the source material, it's not so clear as there's little to no use of gender pronouns such as he and she. What confuses the situation even more though is that Isayama said that Hanji's gender is not important to the story's telling, and so he wanted to give his readers the freedom to come up with their own interpretations. So it seems that her or his gender is left up to the reader and will potentially never be revealed. A direct translation of the Japanese title for the series would be something like Advancing Giants. And if you think about it, Attack on Titan doesn't really make much sense. They aren't really attacking anyone, especially not a Titan. They are attacking the Titans, and they are being attacked by the Titans and try to defend themselves. I said try. Yeah, okay, yeah. The reason it got the name Attack on Titan in the end is because Isayama actually picked it himself, and to his credit it does sound an awful lot better than the alternatives. Rule 34. I've talked about this a few times before and I can't really say that I'm surprised this time either. In case you don't know, Rule 34 is a generally accepted internet rule that states that pornography and sexually related material exist for any conceivable subject. And Attack on Titan is no exception. Yeah. But it isn't that some dude somewhere has made some sexualized fan art or something. No, there's actual pretty high budget pornography. Yeah. With some creepy ass fucking titans, I might add, that even have like actual costumes, built a small village, and even special effects. Because you know, what would porn be without special effects? Just regular porn, I guess. Earlier this year, the Attack on Titan manga took the #1 spot from the extremely popular manga series One Piece. Attack on Titan sold over 8.3 million copies, while One Piece sold 4.9 million. It's the first manga in 5 years to claim the top spot from One Piece, and it only further proves how insanely popular the series has become in only a few years. In chapter 57 of the manga, there's a sort of hidden sexual message on a piece of paper on one of the panels. You have to flip the text upside down, and even though it's written quite sloppy, you can still make it out. If you can read Japanese, that is. But I've included English translation, you know, just in case. Only a few months ago, it was revealed that Attack on Titan would get not one, but 2 live-action adaptations, both of which will be released next year. You can already view a sort of preview in the form of a commercial with a few live-action Titans in it. Actually, the special effects team that made the Titans for the commercial will also do the effects for the 2 movies. Even more exciting though is that earlier this month, Season 2 of the anime